When we can't stop talking about the next-gen iPad Pro, how the iPad Air is gonna be, and what Apple's planning for a future redesigned iPad mini, it's very easy to neglect the most popular iPad, the one that most people end up buying anyway, and that is the good old-fashioned regular iPad. There's no suffix of any kind. It's just simple, direct to the point, and it knows exactly what its audience is, which is people who don't really care that much about displays, tech specs, or camera quality. They just need an iPad that works. And for a lot of people, the 7th generation iPad has been perfect for them, but there's absolutely going to be another one. So I thought in today's video we could talk about what they're planning and why maybe it's hard to notice. Let's begin. So yeah, you may have already picked up on the fact that no one's really been talking about the 8th gen iPad very much. There's very little leaks or rumors going around for it. All we essentially have is Love to Dream saying that there's going to be a new iPad this year with an A12 chip, and that's essentially as far as they can get with this thing. They've kind of backed themselves into a corner with that regular iPad because you can't make it too good, otherwise it will cannibalize iPad Air sales, and you can't make it too bad, otherwise the upgrade over last year's will be too small. But the important thing to remember, because some of you may be thinking, oh, they won't do another iPad this year because the last one is fine and it still holds up. They have released a budget iPad every year since 2017. I remember being back in the attic and talking about the new iPad Apple had launched at $330 with a non-laminated display. They updated it in 2018, then they updated it in 2019. So 3 years in a row, they've been updating this product, and our last one, of course, the 10.2-inch iPad 7th gen came out last September. I think it makes perfect sense that they're going to update the iPad again this September, primarily because the A10 Fusion chip, while it may be good enough, is gonna get kind of old pretty soon, especially if they decide to do nothing with the 8th gen iPad this year, because that means going into 2021 with an A10 Fusion chip. By the way, that chip came out with the iPhone 7. Apple doesn't sell the iPhone 7 anymore. They don't even sell the iPhone 8 anymore. In fact, the oldest CPU you can get in a new iPhone today is the A12 chip within the iPhone XR. Everything else has moved on to the A13 at this point. So while the A10 chip may be enough for daily needs, Apple likes to provide software updates and service to products for a long period of time after you buy it. So this is part of the reason I think Apple's working on an Apple Watch SE, because the Series 3 is coming up on 3 years old this year. And if they were going into 2021 rocking a 3-year-old CPU in a watch, it's probably not going to be able to rock, 2 or 3 years of software updates after that. Which in my opinion makes perfect sense that they would want to update the CPU in the 10.2-inch iPad to be an A12 chip, because sure, the speed enhancement will be appreciated. It'll let things run a little better, but at the same time, ensure that that iPad can get software updates for a good maybe 5 years after you buy it, perhaps even longer, dependent on how the next generations of iPads go. But I know what a lot of people are thinking about, because this is kind of the biggest compromise, the biggest loss you get with the budget iPad, the non-laminated display. If you've already used an iPad with a laminated display, you know exactly how nice it is to have the glass and the pixels all merge and become one in harmony. And then once you try out a cheap iPad and you see the non-laminated display, you're like, oh my god, it's horrendous, it looks disgusting. So I totally get why some of you are turned off by that and you wish that Apple would just, come on, laminate the budget iPad display already. But now that that iPad has a smart connector and it has Apple Pencil support and it has a display over 10 inches, if they laminated it, there would basically be no point in the current iPad Air anymore, which is why I do have a theory. There's no leaks or rumors to suggest this, so I'm just going out on a limb here, but this is what I think they could do with the iPad 8th gen. They're going to launch it at the same time that they launched the iPad Air 4, which I've talked about in previous videos, basically taking the 2018 iPad Pro, dumbing it down a little bit and charging $500, so you don't have ProMotion, you don't have stereo speakers, you don't have the A12X chip, but you'll still have an iPad Pro design language, you'll have USB-C, you'll have Magic Keyboard support, and you'll have Face ID that works in any orientation. And then making the budget iPad with a laminated display can make a bit more sense, because it would still look fairly dated. It would still have Lightning, it would still have a home button, Touch ID, which, come on, Touch ID in 2021 and a physical home button that actually clicks, that's kind of dated. So I'm hoping here that Apple has found a way to optimize their assembly line so that they can make a laminated display iPad in an affordable way. And because the A12 chip is getting kind of old, they have lots of those in supply, so putting those in their iPads isn't going to cost them too much. And then you can still have a $330 iPad, except this time, finally, it'll have a laminated display. It'll have a somewhat more up-to-date CPU and GPU, and yes, it'll still be compatible with all the previous accessories, the old-fashioned smart keyboard, the old-fashioned Apple Pencil, but the new iPad Air 4, which will look very similar to an iPad Pro, and it'll have Apple Pencil 2 support and have around a 10.8-inch display, maybe because it's got a little bit thicker bezels or something like that. But there have been a lot of leaks and rumors going around with the iPad Air and what they're doing for the next generation of that. So to me, it makes perfect sense that they would want to drop the budget iPad and the Air at the same time. That way you get a fairly solid iPad upgrade for the entry-level option. And when it comes to the updated iPad Air, I think a lot of people are still going to buy that. They're going to want an iPad Pro looking iPad without having to spend, $800. And of course, this will be done after the back to school bundle. If you're wondering when I think they're going to drop both of these iPads, my personal guess would be alongside the iPhones in September, because that's when we got our last budget iPad. So yes, the event will primarily be about the iPhone and the Apple Watch, but maybe in the first 20 minutes or something, they'll be like, yeah, iPads, remember those? We got some better ones for you now. And once again, I think Apple will have a very solid iPad lineup by the end of this year, with the only iPad getting neglected being the iPad mini, but it sounds like they've got something big in store for that next year too. Is this too much wishful thinking? Do you think the iPad is still going to have a non-laminated display this year? Feel free to hit me up over on Twitter, join my Discord, we can chat more about your stupid idea there. This is your Apple Sheep here. I'll see you in the next one.